Hi, this is Lane8492. This is the first of two true crime story videos I'm doing today. This is the case, it was in Florida, of Mark Dean Schwab. You see, Mark Dean Schwab was a known child sex offender who committed hideous crimes against children in Florida. You see, Mark Dean Schwab was born in 1968 in Dover, Ohio, and then moved to Merritt Island in Brevard County, Florida. See, at age seven, after he had, at 17, Mark Dean Schwab had apparently dropped out of high school before completing the 11th grade. And at 17, Mark Dean Schwab had lured his first victim, a 14-year-old male, a high school sophomore from Brevard County, Florida, where he essayed him into his car, and there he put a knife to the boy's throat and drove to a remote dirt path where Mark Dean Schwab had apparently essayed him. The crime went unreported until Schwab's first conviction because he had threatened to kill the victim if he spoke out. Then in 1987, Mark Dean Schwab abducted a 13-year-old boy from Cocoa Beach, Florida, after befriending the boy's family and grooming him. Mark Dean Schwab had offered to bring the boy to a house painting job, but instead drove him up to his house where he had essayed the victim, and then returned the boy to the same home that same night and attempted to buy his silence with the promise of $200. The victim reported Mark Dean Schwab the next day, which led to Mark Dean Schwab being arrested. He was charged with aggravated sexual battery and SA. The conviction would have been punishable by a term of imprisonment for life not exceeding 40 years under Florida law. Instead, Mark Dean Schwab received a light sentence, which is not acceptable, of only 8 years. He was then released March 4th, 1991, after only serving 3 years of the sentence. When the rest of his sentence was commuted, he was placed on 15 years probation, and as a result, Mark Dean Schwab was required to register as a sex offender. But then, April 18th of 1991, Cocoa Beach resident 11-year-old Junny Rios-Martinez had went missing after failing to show up to a school baseball game. Apparently, Mark Dean Schwab saw Junny Rios-Martinez's picture in the March 21st, 1991 edition of the Florida Today, which is the daily newspaper of Melbourne in Brevard County, Florida. And that's where Mark Dean Schwab decided to lure 11-year-old Junny Rios-Martinez, and said that Schwab claimed to have quit his job at the newspaper and taken up work at a surfing magazine, and providing the parents with forged documents as proof. They believed it even though they weren't real. Mark Dean Schwab told Junny Rios-Martinez's parents he was planning to take their son up to a surfing tournament in Daytona Beach, Florida. And that would be the last time they would ever see their son. He was last spotted in a U-Haul truck near his school's baseball field with a man matching Schwab's description. And of course, Schwab claimed that a man named Donald had forced him to kidnap and essay a child under the threat that the person would kill Mark Dean Schwab's family. The next day, police taped a phone call with Mark Dean Schwab's aunt's permission and determined that Mark Dean Schwab was up in Ohio. And this would lead to the arrest of Mark Dean Schwab. He was extradited back to Brevard County, Florida, where he was tried and convicted of abduction, essaying, and the murder of 11-year-old Junny Rios-Martinez. And for that, Mark Dean Schwab was sentenced to death. In 2007, after all of his appeals were exhausted, he was set for execution. But apparently that was on hold. Executions were on hold all over the nation because lethal injection was under some kind of a review, but then it was found constitutional by the SCOTUS. Plus, at that time, it had been a year since the botched lethal injection execution of Angel Nieves Diaz in Florida. But after the SCOTUS found lethal injection constitutional in Bays versus Kentucky, executions resumed. And as a result, Mark Dean Schwab was served his death warrant, setting his execution for July 1st of 2008. And a week prior to that, Mark Dean Schwab was brought to the death house at the Florida State Prison in Stark, Florida. On the day of his execution, Mark Dean Schwab would consume a last meal of fried eggs, for his last meal, Mark Dean Schwab would consume a last meal of fried eggs, bacon, sausage links, hash browns, buttered toast, and a quart of chocolate milk. On July 1st, 2008, at the age of 38, not making it to 39, or at the age of 39, Mark Dean Schwab is executed by lethal injection at the Florida State Prison in Stark, Florida, after then Governor Charlie Crist declined to intervene. This case is why you got to be careful. When someone you don't know wants to take your kid somewhere, don't buy into it. Just decline, because you don't know who the person is. The person could be some sicko. And that's how Mark Dean Schwab was manipulative in luring his victim away. And sadly, the victim died, as Junny Rios-Martinez died as a result of it. So you got to be wise at who you trust, especially if it's someone you don't know. This is Lane 8492. I have an associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree in criminal justice. Hope you enjoy this video and let me know what you think. Thanks.